Welcome to Voices on Art, the Van Horn Gallery podcast hosted by Daniela Steinfeld. This episode is in English. For other languages, go to our YouTube channel Van Horn Gallery and use the subtitles tool. I'm Daniela Steinfeld, and this podcast is about my personal and also about a lot of other people's enthusiasm for art. We talk art, life, and how art changes our life in so many ways. The podcast comes to you in English or German, so go to our YouTube channel Van Horn Gallery if you need subtitles. You can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the platform of your choice. I hope to get you on board and tell you interesting stories you enjoy listening to. And after each episode, I give you my personal book recommendations, so stay tuned. Thank you. Today my guest is Daniel Hook. He is the art director of Art Cologne right now, but Dan has a very hybrid identity, I would say. So I feel quite related, because coming from an artistic family, being an artist himself, becoming a gallerist, becoming an art fair person, a dealer, a collector, all these things. So he basically covered all of the areas you could be in the art world, more or less, which is very good if you do anything in the arts. And Dan and me, we will talk today about his background, personal things, but also about the future of galleries, art fairs, and the good ideas we could develop to make it a really prosperous future. So welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm very happy because it took a long time for us to get together. Although we know each other through all the years and all the different kind of like creative enterprises we did. So what I found interesting, I listened to some podcasts you did already. You grew up the first years in Zurich in an international family, Swiss American. So your childhood memories must be Swiss. The language you heard in the city must be Schweizerdeutsch.
Yes.
Yeah, and then in a crucial time, I would say around 10 or 11 or so. So Grundschule is the first like primary school you were in Switzerland, and then your parents divorced, and then you went back with your mom to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then suddenly it was a completely different language, different people, all new. How did you cope with that? How was that for you?
Well, it was definitely a culture shock.
Yeah.
My older brother and I spoke, growing up in Zurich. Our father was Swiss, of course, and we spoke Swiss German with him. And with our mother, we always spoke English. And I think before we started kindergarten, we were kind of speaking a mishmash of Swiss German and English. And then with kindergarten, that kind of got straightened out. We were mostly identifying as Swiss people, as Swiss individuals. And then once we started primary school, we of course learned High German, which is the written and the language that one reads and writes, even in Swiss German. So, yeah, moving to the U.S. was pretty crazy. It was 1979, so it's also kind of I got to experience, I think, an older
version of the U.S.?
Yeah, we landed in JFK at night, and it was black, and then we took a taxi. Our friends picked us up in their Volkswagen, Type 3. It was yellow, and it had a door missing. And I remember you could see through the floor. Anthropologists, they were archaeologists.
Yeah, okay.
Academics. I think through one of the floorboards you could see the road. It was kind of quite rusty, the whole thing. But yeah, it was just, the lights would catch blurbs of barbed wire and chain link fences, and and it was hot as hell. It was at the end of May of 1979, so it was really humid, and I think there was a garbage strike in New York that summer. So it was stinky. It was completely different. It smelled, it looked, everything was different.
So it was not exactly the American dream, the first impression, although if you it's still like this, on the industrial outskirts of the big cities. it's sometimes really hardcore what lies around there. The old cars, the rotten cars, the left buildings, because there's so much space that people just can say, oh well, we just leave it like that and then we go somewhere else. So in a way that also incorporates the American dream. But so this Swiss boy coming, well, from an educated academic family, but still then suddenly, okay, United States. And then you had to kind of like reinvent yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think New York was, I think it was completely different than I imagined it. That's number one, I would say. So I was just overwhelmed by the whole experience. And then about a month or 6 weeks later, we moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the University of Michigan is. My mother wanted to continue her PhD. And it's a small town with, I think, a population of 150,000. So everyone pretty much lives in a house, has a front yard, a backyard. The front yards are all grass. There are no fences. One yard goes to the next yard. It's a lot of trees. So going from New York to this kind of green, humid, small town in Michigan, I mean, it was interesting. Yeah.
So do you think, because I often feel that when I talk to people, and unfortunately I'm only bilingual, you know, so I wish I could speak much more languages, but the only languages that are quite all right for me are German and English. But I have the feeling that the different languages bring out different parts of your personality. That one is a different person speaking different languages, because they kind of like also evoke different feelings. And maybe for somebody whose language is not the mother tongue, it's even easier to express some things because you're not so identified with the language. And I wonder how that sort of like, this transition came for you. I mean, you spoke with your mother because she's an American, she was an American, you spoke English with her, but still now speaking with everybody. Did you have the feeling that also developed something different in you as a person?
Oh my God.
Oh, well, sorry, complicated question.
No, I mean, I don't know, I think it was just a part of growing, evolving, adapting. I don't think it's, when I moved to Cologne, my German was pretty rough, rudimentary, let's say. I don't know. I mean, I was very quiet. I mean, I definitely had a different personality from what I had in Los Angeles as a gallerist, operating within, you know, the English language spectrum. Germany was definitely, you know, reassessing not only my own life, but how I fit into the world here, becoming kind of hyper aware of that.
What I felt we had, especially in Cologne, there was somebody also there coming from LA, a Swiss guy, and for him it was not easy to cope with the mentality, you know? Because it is, although we think we are like the Western world, and especially America and Germany with art, for a long, long time, many decades, we were very, very connected. It was basically Cologne and New York and a little bit Chicago. So, but that changed. And so it's still a culture shock, you know, although we know all the American movies. For the first time then really being there, and not in the big capitals, but probably on the countryside. When I was in Texas, for example, it's so, oh yeah, okay, it is different. We think we are very close to each other, but we're not. It's a different thing. We see that probably even more, but just let's go a little bit back to the start. So, I mean, everybody knows it, but still I need to say it. So you are from a family which is very close to art, academics, your grandpa, although you never met him, but still your mom was the daughter of László Moholy-Nagy, or Nagy, or whatever, how we say it, and who was, kind of like an inventor of many, many things. So you grew up with that, but that does not mean that you can relate to it. You know, you could also even have rebelled against it. But how did you had to find your own standpoint with art? So when started it to be clear for you? Oh yeah, okay, I'm going to follow that path? How did that start for you?
I think with Moholy-Nagy, you know, Bauhaus master, modernist, abstract artist. So when I started art school, I couldn't quite reconcile the two. I mean, that part of my life, or my grandfather's output, seemed far, far in the past. And it took me I'd say until about 15 years ago, like when I dislodged myself from having a gallery and was focusing on art fairs, getting more involved with the foundation, the Moholy-Nagy Foundation, also with the estate. It generated I think a new appreciation and better understanding of what Moholy-Nagy tried to do. And so it, you know, kind of lined up parallel, you know. My interest ceased being solely contemporary art or that world, and also appreciating modernism, appreciating art of the first half of the 20th century. And I'd say I've kind of moved 75% into that direction. So it's, yeah, I mean, in the beginning it was really abstract. I mean, as a child, I thought everyone had, you know, an artist.
In the family.
Yeah, where you'd go to museums and see their work, you know. I thought, it didn't seem out of the ordinary to me.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still then you decided, okay, I'm going to become an artist, and we know that it is not such an easy path to be an artist, to develop the work, to do all of that. And you were at a very good school, which is the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, where a lot of famous artists were educated. And Chicago is, for me, I always felt a kinship, because Chicago is a little bit like Düsseldorf, you know, I mean, it's not like the biggest American city. It has a super good art school, and it has a lot of institutions. You know, so there was always and it has even the connection to the Düsseldorf Malerschule, to the Düsseldorf School of Painting. You know, there is even a little connection, because there was, I think, one very early American artist who ended up in Chicago who was in Düsseldorf during the Malerschule. There is a connection, I tell you. There's a connection between Düsseldorf and Chicago, I'm pretty sure.
Who's that?
Yeah, well, what was his name? I mean, I know that Washington crossing the Delaware, the painting, you know, that the Delaware there is kind of like at the River Rhine in Meerbusch.
Huh.
It was painted, actually, the river is not the Delaware.
Okay.
It's the Rhine. That I'm pretty sure of.
Okay.
The other thing I would say, I read about it, but I right now I couldn't be 100% sure about that. But anyway, there is like the spirit of that. There is a kind of like, probably not Düsseldorf, but I would say probably Rhineland spirit. You know, a lot of artists are in the city. There are a lot of studios. I don't know in the time when you were there if there was a big gallery scene, because at that time I think galleries were mainly in New York City still, in the US.
No, I mean, there were always a handful of interesting or internationally relevant galleries active in Chicago. Donald Young, Rona Hoffman.
Oh, yeah. I remember them.
A few, Feigen, contemporary. Yeah, no, I mean, Chicago it's called the Third Coast for a reason, you know, it comes after New York and LA. It's in the center of the country. It's, it's the ones, I gotta say this, you know, I hated living there when I lived there, and I felt it was too provincial and regional.
Coming from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then, but it's the one city that I kind of still really miss. I mean, that I kind of get nostalgia about. Having lived in LA, having lived here in the beautiful Rhineland. Occasionally I still do miss Chicago, but I'm kind of happy not to be there. It has its own issues. But to defend it a bit more, it had the most important American art fair, I'd say from the beginning of the 70s until about 2000 and let's say about 2002.
Yes, yeah.
And then it was surpassed by the Armory Show.
Wasn't it Miami that kind of like did the big disruption, that suddenly there was Miami Basel? Because there was the Art Chicago.
To be honest, I wasn't there anymore. Oh. Miami started in 2001. It was supposed to take place in 2001, and then you had 9/11, and then they postponed it to 2002. I think 2002, there was the complete meltdown, or 2001, of Tom Blackman, and they couldn't get the fair open. I think he ran out of funds and couldn't pay the contractors to finish the fair for the exhibitors to start setting up. And then it was moved to the merchandise mart.
The fair in Chicago.
Yeah. They moved it from Navy Pier to, I think, Grant Park.
Yeah.
And it just a meltdown. But prior to that, I mean, before Art Basel Miami Beach even opened, New York started playing a more relevant role with Colin DeLand and Paul Morris's Armory Show, which is not the original Armory exhibition of 1917?
Something like Duchamp was
involved. Yeah. No, that was a one-off. Anyway, the Armory Show grew out of the Gramercy Fair, which was a hotel fair organized by Colin DeLand and Paul Morris. And, I forgot her name now. Colin DeLand's wife. Pat Hearn. The three of them organized the Gramercy Fair in a hotel, I think in 94. And so I would say that was the beginning. And as that show evolved into the Armory Show at the Piers, Art Chicago started declining.
I mean, okay, that the world, and so the art world is always changing, and in your life a lot of things were also changing. So when was the first time that you said like, oh well, probably I'm not going to be an artist, I'm going to open up my own space? Because you did Chicago Project Space, but before that you did another space also in Chicago
for about
with
a year.
Michael Hall.
No. Chicago Project Room was with Michael Hall.
That was with Michael Hall.
And RX Gallery,
yeah.
I opened with my girlfriend at the time. And that lasted from about 96 to about 98. About a year and a half, 2 years.
But what was the original impulse to do it?
I'd say my girlfriend wanted to open a gallery.
Oh.
And I had a studio visit with Hamza Walker.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the most embarrassing event in my life.
Was it so demoralizing?
Yes, he was Hamza's great, and I love Hamza, and of course I respect his views. So after what he told me, I was like, never again will I ever show my art in public.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That must have been pretty hardcore.
It really turned me off.
Okay.
It was humiliating. Anyway, and that's when
so
we decided,
take care, professors.
Let's open a gallery. No, I think it's great. You have to, I think today we have far too many artists. There are too many graduate students coming out of MFA programs. It's too much. And they all have these huge expectations of becoming the next, Rushy Johnson or, superstar. It's gotten insane.
Yeah, but everything I mean, the art world in general has become bigger, more countries also participating in it. No, it was, I think, probably easier to navigate like before the 90s. Yeah.
I don't know. You know, the 80s were huge. I think we tend to forget that. And
that's true.
I was just a kid, an art student, when the 80s art market crashed.
In 89.
89, 90,
Yeah.
I was 21. Now I'm old. I mean, 57, I'm up there.
You're grown up.
But you have all these 40-something, 30-somethings, let's say the people in their prime in the art world. They have no memory of that.
True.
And they're the ones making decisions today.
So what does that mean?
That's a problem.
Because they don't know the history?
Yeah, they think what we just had the last 15 years is like,
this is normal.
That's never been so huge. It has been that huge. And mega galleries aren't a new thing. Marlborough Gallery in the 70s had, 10 galleries worldwide.
Oh, I even didn't know that.
They did. Lelong had 3 or 4 galleries. Those were the mega galleries of that time. Yeah, I mean, it's really, I'm kind of like, what we're going through now is completely normal. Yeah, it's just the market doing its thing. It has times when it goes up, and it has times when it goes down. And it's not this, this end of the world where everything is just going to disappear.
Yes. No, I find this is, I completely agree. I find this is very, that this is just like a big fear bomb that is crashing everywhere. But nevertheless, I'm not 100% sure if everything is quite normal. I think there are certain things in the world which are first-timers. Not that there hasn't always been disruption in the world, always. And I think what was probably not normal was like 70 years of prosperity and peace, mostly in Europe, because there was never peace in the world. But in Europe, it was pretty peaceful for a long time.
Yeah.
For a longer time, which led to a lot of prosperity.
Until Putin.
Yes.
Yeah.
More or less. I mean, the Yugoslavian war was there, but it was a war, but it was not a war one country against the other country. It was the peoples of one country against each other.
It was a civil war.
It was a civil war. A civil war. That's the right word.
That kind of
yeah.
succumbed into a ethnic cleansing war.
Yeah, but so this is one thing. And I think also that really, as we had the Industrial Revolution and many little revolutions, I think actually like the technology enables us to do things which weren't happening before, and we quite don't have the grip yet of what does that mean, It could be great, it could be not great, usually it's in the middle. So I think there are things different than at least what I experienced in my lifetime. And so for me, I think there are always, in challenges, there are always so many opportunities to develop things which are new. And I think, I know people don't like to hear it so much, but I think the art world is a kind of conservative world. Yeah, so it's not. It's not necessarily the inventors.
No, I know.
So you sit there and think, because you also have to cater to certain people that you need always, because art was always associated with people, with funds, with money. This is also nothing new. It was the church, it was the commerce, it was the Dutch people. So it always has to balance each other out, But still, sort of like those, I had the feeling this, not that it wasn't work, but this flow of a certain kind of easiness. I find that a little bit disrupted right now, which gives us the chance to develop new ideas and new ways to work with the art market, because art anyway is never ever going to stop. Art will always exist. We don't have to worry about that at all, because people are artists, people want to make art, people love art.
Art will happen no matter what.
No matter what happens, art will happen.
It's like eating and shitting.
Yeah,
people will make art.
People will make art. Yeah. And there will also always be people that love art, that see art. But the market, which enables artists and everybody involved to survive, to live, to create, because the cliche of the starving artist is quite depressing and just not what we want to achieve, but also the cliche of the only profit-seeking super capitalist, it's also just a cliche, because most people I know that are involved, and this is even true for art fair directors, quite some of them I know personally, are very, very engaged people that actually love art and want to do something good in it and make also a living for them, their families, and the artists they are involved with. So I have the feeling we are, in a way, at a
crossroads.
Yeah, crossroads in a way, which I find an opportunity, but I think also, and this is why there's so much fear talk, I think, right now, is that we really don't know yet really how things will be developing in the next 2 years or so.
We can get a good impression of what's going to happen by analyzing what happened the last time a major correction happened. And if you go back to the late 80s and you look at the key players, Art Cologne was the most prestigious, important contemporary art fair. It wasn't Basel.
No, it's true.
So that was one of the main players. You look at the galleries who were important. You had Michael Werner in Germany. You had Mary Boone, played a major role. She was one of the major tastemaker, defining galleries of the 80s. She was selling, David Salle paintings for over $1 million.
Which is, for the 80s.
Yeah, that was amazing. And it wasn't the auction houses that were, there are there are details that are different comparing then to today. The auction houses didn't play such a validating role. They played a validating role in kind of documenting the crash of the art market. When, I forgot the collection, I think it was Saatchi. Saatchi put up all of his Sandro Chia paintings at once at auction, and they failed to sell, destroying his market.
Destroying the career.
So, you look at the major players of the 80s, and then with the crash of the 80s market, what happened in the 90s? The 90s gave birth to a new generation of artists, galleries. And those galleries found, their defining moment in Berlin, in London, in New York, and a whole new generation of galleries developed. Many of those, Daniel Buchholz, Esther Schipper, had started earlier in the late 80s. So they were the young kids when the big market kind of went down. I think we're at a similar situation. I think there's a lot of redefining going on. I think a lot of rethinking I think this is one of the reasons some galleries are bailing out and shutting down, knowing what they're about to face, which is 5 to 10 years of economic slowdown. But then, are they going to be around? And is it worth that wait in 5-10 years to then
that's the question. Is it
be a
worth
part of that peak that prevails? Because if you look across the board, almost everything that was seen as the premier or the top was positioned differently in the 10 years that followed. So we had to start from scratch. And, parallel, what's interesting with Cologne, Germany reunifying in 1991, also brought Berlin into the game.
Yes.
Suddenly with cheap real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember talking to Michael Janssen in Cologne in 2000 about real estate in Cologne. He said, Berlin is a lot cheaper. And then, Berlin got more expensive than Cologne. And now I think Cologne is getting, now they're both expensive, but whatever. Anyway, I think it's an exciting time.
I think so too. But it's also, I think, a time where right now I feel there is a little bit of a void, and people don't, because of void, I don't know, it probably is the wrong word for it. Things are moving, but it's not yet really defined, this is the door we have to walk through. So I think there are some people that are just like thinking, let's continue how it always was, because that worked for us. And then there's a new generation that say, no, let's make it different, make it like that. But I think there is something really sweet, which is true, I think, for everything, in endurance, in just, staying on board.
Yeah.
Just continuing, but under new circumstances. That means reinventing. So you have reinvented yourself several times in your life.
Yeah.
At least professionally. Yeah. It was always in the art world, but it was very different works in the art world. So do you think that kind of made you more resistant to face certain challenges or to develop new ideas because you're used to reinvent things?
I see it not as a reinvention, but more as a gaining of experience through all of having played all the different roles, because it's one thing that led to the next, wanting to be an artist. I think, the impetus to open the gallery was I wanted to show my own work. And I remember you have to remember, this is 1996. The market's been pretty dead for about 6 years. There were few commercial galleries in Chicago. There were maybe 3. Rona Hoffman, Donald Young.
You could
it just wasn't that much. Better put, there hadn't been a new gallery that opened in several years. A new commercial gallery. So most of my friends were doing shows at non-profit galleries, at Name Gallery, Randall Street Gallery. New non-profit or collective artist galleries were being founded, project spaces, but not commercial galleries. So my thought was, hey, I'm going to open a commercial gallery with the hopes that I'll meet some people who will be interested in showing my work, because you can't show your own work. Okay. So that was one of, and then I had that horrible review of Hamza, and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to
forget my own work.
I think I'm just going to stick with the gallery. But also the gallery had success. Who did I, this is funny, because who did I meet then? Who were the collectors? Louis Manilow, the Stones, the Guthmans, and then a couple young ones. The Stones, the Guthmans, and Louis Manilow had been collecting in the 80s. They've been collecting since the 70s. So the one thing that didn't change are the big collectors. And I think those big collectors today are also not going to change. They're going to continue. There's a small cluster of collectors who love art, who understand the language of art, and they will continue to buy art. And when a big correction comes, they don't cry, they're quite happy, because it brings prices back down. And that means they can continue with their hobbies, which are expensive hobbies, basically.
Yeah.
So, it does change the hierarchy of galleries. I don't think we'll be like looking at, the same galleries today, tomorrow. I think tomorrow there will be a new hierarchy of mega galleries. It switches,
But do you think
those things are things that change? And also the hierarchy, artists are kind of like fashion models anyway. They get changed out after 5-10 years. People get bored and move on. You know, artists themselves have to reinvent themselves. And if you look at the course of an artist's career, you know, it's lows, highs, ideally another high, and then maybe 5 years later another high, you know, another like, wow. And then eventually they become, you know, ingrained into the psyche of institutions and private collections.
Yes, but right now I find it, you know, on one hand it's like as international as it probably never was before because so many other countries came on the scene. And on the other hand, it's becoming so regional. You know, I mean, really, so it's like, you know, all of this is existing everywhere, but it's kind of like each scene has their own market, has their own artists, has their own collectors, you know. And so what is, you know, because, okay, the artists reinvent themselves, the galleries reinvent themselves, you know, there will be a new hierarchy, although I don't like hierarchy, because I think you can be like a small gallery and still have a big cultural impact, you know.
It's got nothing to do with size. It's got all to do with how long you're around. Yeah. Now, you can be a huge gallery for 5 years and disappear.
True. But there will or must be then also a new, yes?
The global.
Yeah,
so,
the global.
Let's talk. I think what you're referring to is internationalism versus globalism, yeah? And they're one and the same thing. So, in the 1980s, who were the leading art world countries? USA, Germany.
Yes.
Japan. Huge market. The Japanese in the 80s were the Chinese the last 10 years.
I remember a little bit.
Well, they were buying those, you know, do you remember that story of that Japanese collector who, upon his death, wanted to have the Monet's haystacks, one of Monet's haystacks incinerated to go with him into the afterlife.
Yes.
And the whole world was like, no, you cannot burn this, you know.
It was a quite Egyptian idea.
No, well,
to burn something to go with you in the afterlife?
That's kind of a Japanese thing.
That's a Japanese thing.
It's their culture.
That's their culture?
Yeah,
I had no idea
culture.
that you also burn things.
Yes.
No idea about that.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of
I don't
cultures
remember,
do that.
was it burned?
No.
No.
No, I think they talked him out of it.
Because
like, look, it's worth 150 million,
It
don't.
was an important cultural
Yeah.
artifact also.
Anyway, but you look at the prices, you look at, you know, and that shifted, all right? So suddenly, you know, the Japanese were hit really hard economically. I mean, life-altering. And then the Chinese emerged, yeah. And over the last, you know, 5 years, the Middle East has emerged. And you know, I guess what I'm saying is it's not that new. It's not like the art world is booming and growing. And of course, with that growth, and you know, there are certain sacrifices that are required. I mean, I know of maybe 5 galleries in the United Arab Emirates. Maybe there's 7, you know. I don't know of any galleries in Qatar. Riyadh, I think there's 2 contemporary art galleries, you know. So again, it's like what is pushing this market? It's definitely not artists. It's definitely not the galleries. So it's kind of, how can we purchase and create an art scene ready to go? And it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. So the longevity of that, I'm not too convinced by. And I have a few galleries that are really convinced, like, no, the Middle East is the future. This is where the growth is. There's a lot of money there. But again, it's like we're talking about, you know, under 10 collections that will define collecting there. And that's not enough. Sure, even if it is, it's like you have one of the major auction houses has an auction, and it's 20 lots fail to sell, are bought in, and then they have one, like that Klimt that sold for 400 million, and suddenly it's one of the most successful auctions. So it's one painting selling for way too much. That was a fight between two collections or two collectors, and that defines that as being a huge success. It's the same with the Claire McAndrews Art Basel Market Report with all these statistics, and I'm like, yes, there are a handful of American collectors buying art for billions. Yeah, they're spending billions on art, a handful of collectors. And that surpasses, in terms of prestige and money, I'd say hundreds of German collectors buying art for 10,000 and up to 150,000.
Yes.
That's not sexy enough, even though it's hundreds of people versus the handful of people
just a happy few
spending billions. So what has a longevity? What will stick around? Sure, money. Yeah, they can buy their museums. They can build their museums. And then they have, like the Glenstone, there's a divorce. Boom. The biggest American museum that's been buying the most art is suddenly going through a divorce. And suddenly, boom, it gets split. Suddenly, that goes to auction, that goes to auction. Nothing's safe. There are these unrealistic ideas with this booming American market that galleries have, where you have to laugh, where they're like, they tell a collector, if you want to buy a work by my desirable artist who's trendy and hot, you have to buy two and give one to an institution. Well, every asshole knows institutions sell deaccession work left and right. They do it all the time. You just don't hear about it because it's insignificant work. The minute it's a significant work, then you hear about it. What? They want a deaccession Guernica. We can't have that, But then it's like, no, it's just artist A, B that, had some success back in the 1980s,
So it's basically, real money is changing, is given, exchanged for art, but in the end, it's the story that matters, what is sexier. We could also have the story to say here in the Rhineland, there are hundreds and hundreds of people that buy art, that live with art, that talk about art. All of that could be really hot. Because it sustains also a whole scene full of artists and galleries. But the 1 billionaire is hotter.
Yeah, no, it's just sexier. Look, it's like how many millions, and oh, that's sexy. Yeah, and this is what I'm after. You go into this business, and I'm like, I want to do everything for this guy to buy from me. I've spent 18 years running Art Cologne, and trying to figure out what's up with I know the American market, and yeah, there's big money there that's enabled mega galleries to exist. I'm not going to talk about who came from money, who didn't come from money, who had nepotism, whatever. I don't want to talk about that. I just want to say what we have, and the latest collector to come in and spend all their billions. That's the point of the American market. That is the goal. Yeah, it's to get the gallery as big as possible, to show growth, that you can sell more works at overinflated prices to a new set of collectors who are constantly being replenished. Yeah. What do we have in Germany? We have a very unsexy local market. We have In Germany
Don't
alone.
say that.
No, we have, I think it's sexy, but we have about 450 galleries operating within Germany. Yeah? Maybe 225 in Berlin, 50 in Munich, 25 in Frankfurt, 30 in Düsseldorf.
We have actually 56 in Düsseldorf.
Voila. So, all right, let's say we have 500 galleries in Germany.
Yeah.
How many are there in the US? Probably about 500. Yeah? Then we have 200 Kunstvereine spread throughout Germany, probably more. Then every major German city has a contemporary art museum. Every major German newspaper writes about art reviews and what's being shown, and culture is an important part of the life of Germans. And so, but the sweet spot in buying is between 50 and 150,000. That is like
Max.
Whatever. All right,
There are a few.
The sweet spot is between 15,000 and 50,000.
That's a quite sweet spot.
That's the sweet spot for Germans.
Yeah, and sometimes a little bit more, but
no, I mean, I know a few. There's a few that spend and then there's like 1 or 2 billionaires
that spend a lot. But generally, I would say you're right.
We have hundreds of collectors that spend between 15 and 50,000. And I think in the US, you have really a tiny group that spends maybe up to 15,000. And then you have a huge group that spends 150 up to 2 million, that are just like, boom, it's crazy. You go to an art fair like NADA or the Armory Show or one of the American fairs, and you go into a young gallery, you look at an artist you've never heard of before, and you say, how much is that? And they say, 45,000. And you're like, 45,000 for an artist I've never heard. Can I see their CV? Oh, wow, they've never had an institutional show. Oh, they've had one solo show with your gallery. That's amazing. 45,000. Anyway.
Yes,
normal people can't buy that. They can't. It's their limit.
Yeah.
It's maybe with an art consultant that says, I have to acquire 3 to 4 pieces for this collection here, a year, and then that is okay, but, for your average doctor, dentist in Germany, that's like hard. They can do the 15 to 50,000, 5-10 times a year, I'm guessing, Anyway.
Probably 1 time a year. But, that's all very true up to now, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Right now there is it's a little bit going down, but I don't find it dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, in opposition to what a lot of people say, I think you can feel it. Yes, there is a change.
It's across the board, of course.
But it's not dramatic. It's something you just have to adjust to,
Yeah, but hold on. As the bigger markets decline, the smaller markets decline as well. It's like, you look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's at what, 100,000, and then you look at Ethereum, and Ethereum's at like what, 4,000, and then as one goes down, the other goes down as well. I mean, it's kind of parallel.
Yes, that's normal. So, but now we're here sort of like we want that things, are improving, that things are getting better, and I want this for my artists, for myself, for my collectors, and you want this for the galleries because those are your clients.
Yes.
And so, now it's like also the art fairs have a special role, play a special role. And they also play a special role in making things very, very, very expensive and sometimes so expensive that it really could be dangerous, for a gallery that does not sell. So because you're betting on it,
yes.
I go there, I hope it's like 50,000 or more, and I hope I sell, and if I don't sell, oh yeah, fuck, it's like it's like roulette. And you run the oldest art fair in the world. And so constantly changing, inventing, all of these things. So what is it that Art Cologne can offer? Because Art Cologne also has a special setting because it belongs to a big fair company. You know, it's not a private enterprise. So
it's
it has a bit bigger playground. So what are you doing or what could you do as Art Cologne, or how you know, how are you accommodating all these things we just talked about?
Yes. Look, Cologne, Art Cologne has a purpose, and that is to support the German art market. That's actually what the founders, Rudolf Zwirner and Heinz Strenke, said. We are creating the Art Cologne to support the German art market, and that's what happened. The international, or let's say global, goal of the other art markets, and if you look at the American art market, you look at American fairs like the Armory Show, there's 75–80% American galleries, but they do not define themselves as not being international.
No, absolutely.
They would never say, oh, we are such local fair, we are an American fair. No,
exactly.
they are not aware that there are other countries out there.
Yeah.
Many.
Yeah.
They think there's a big country called Europe, a big country called China, maybe Russia, and then there's South America, Mexico, you know. So there's a very, it's not bad, and I don't mean it as an insult, but the U.S., the United States, is a really big country. I mean, if you drive an automobile, you know, across Germany, it'll take you a day.
True.
And if you do that across the US, it takes you 7 days. If you're really fast, like German Autobahn style, you could do it in 3. But it's a big country. And most Americans do not travel. They don't go to Europe. And so, you know, this kind of, let's call it geographic isolation, impacts on a lot of what they do. And you know, there are local artists in the US that are beloved by Americans. There are galleries that are beloved by Americans, and nobody knows them in Europe. Nobody's ever heard of the gallery, no one's ever heard of the artist, and vice versa. So this is the difference between a global market and a regional market. The difference is, they always think it's the global market. They don't recognize that there's a regional market there. So that's a funny thing. It's also a fluke that the US even became relevant in the art market, or that it became, I'd say, a part of the avant-garde, and that's because of World War II. That's because all of the intelligentsia fled Europe and went to the US, mostly went to New York. And voila, you have all of the intelligentsia there, and boom, suddenly you have a booming art world. And that is changing as well. So as geographies sort of shift, as people shift, all of that will kind of come to an end. Germany played a defining role. Germany in the 80s, 1980s, it had Cologne as the centerpiece, and you had major collections that played in this American market and got their fingers burned. And ever since then, they've been very careful. And German collectors, you have to admit, are extremely careful.
That's true.
They take months to decide.
Yes.
So, I believe this love for art and the German art market will continue. Of course, it'll be impacted by what's going on in the United States, but in the end, it's not going to be hit as hard, because the people here, I mean, not to be mean, but the people here are buying art because they love it. Because they want to have it. They want to hang it.
They want to live with it.
They want to show it off to their friends.
Probably.
You know, stuff like that. They're not like, I'm buying this as an investment.
Not many.
I'm buying this to flip. No, if you want to buy something to flip, go buy a Go buy a Günter Uecker. That's a solid investment. You know, buy an Emmy Knöbel. That's a solid investment. You know, Knöbel, Uecker will be loved in 50 years. They'll be loved in 100 years.
True.
They're defining, you know. But the people that buy young, emerging art, those people buy it because they love art, they love the language, they love learning. Yeah. And there's the counterparts in the US, but there's also a huge number that have been speculating and building up artists, profiting off those artists, and then moving on to the next artist. So, plus art consultants, how many, you know, we have I've maybe met 5 German art consultants. And remember when I moved here, I had a meeting with Achenbach, Helge Achenbach, and before the scandal.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I mean, I visited him in his office here in Düsseldorf, and it was like, this was big business.
It was.
It was glamorous. He was like a king. He could barely give me the time of day. But anyway, he's turned into a sweetheart in the meantime. So anyway, but what can we do? And what opportunity does this open up for us now?
For us now, exactly.
Voila.
So,
what are you doing?
So, you know, what I'm doing is really what I also did during COVID, is relying on very, very personal transactions. You know, and I had once this kind of like, not vision, but what I always liked was the idea you have this small room, you know, you go in the back room, then there is this Staffelei, the easel.
Yes.
And then you have like, you know, very old school, and then you have this curtain over it. And then, you know, and then you have the $1 million Matisse. So I was always believing really in, first of all, personal integrity, personal storytelling, personal connections. Because in the end, most people I meet, yes, there are people that buy from JPEGs, especially if they know the work, or if the work is just a very well-known artist and you know that's a Richter. Okay, no problem about that. But most people say, oh, I would like to see it first, you know? I don't know the artist, but I really, really like it. Can we meet? Then we meet. So then we start talking. Then we find, oh, that's interesting. What, you know? Then probably you become closer. Some of my collectors I would call friends over the years, you know? And so I think this is something to be really rooted where you are. So to have deep roots in where you actually are, in the space you are, in the Rhineland or wherever you are, it doesn't matter. And from there you can go out. And also one cannot underestimate, because social media can't really replace the word of mouth. You know, that people say, you know, they have a dinner and they have a beautiful work at home, and other people ask, what is that? Oh, well, I really like this. Where can I get this, you know? Those are the things in times of crisis. I don't say that you cannot go to all the art fairs and meet all the people, but in my experience, and during the 20 years I'm doing this now, my experience is, I mean, there was a time when Liszt and Nada and all these young art fairs were working super, because people were very curious, and they just came, oh, I don't know it. And I don't know it was a quality sign. It was, I don't know it, what is it? What, just $10,000, I take it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know is like, I don't know it, what is it? You know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this, all this curiosity, and I trust myself, I trust my own eye, I trust my own feeling. And because I think it's good, I'm going to take it. Not because, I don't know, some people tell me what is good. So I think that changed a bit. So this is one thing where I think, yes, personal connections are still very, very important, and that's for everything true. That's even in big politics, you know. If 2 world leaders don't like each other personally, it's really bad for the countries. It's just because 2 people don't think, oh, he's not trustful. And so this is how I manage right now through all the crises. But also I talk to people like here, you know. It's like, I think really connecting, and it can be worldwide connecting. I think that's really an issue. And I mean connecting, and this is probably on a deeper level. You know, not socializing.
You know, Margot Levin was the grande dame of the LA art world. Yeah, she had John Baldessari and, you know, Frank Stella and other, you know, she was very important. And she had a big gallery in an old sound stage on Santa Monica Boulevard in Hollywood, close to Beverly Hills, and smoked a lot. Oh my God. There were ashtrays all over the gallery. So, but I walked in the gallery one day and she's like, hello. You know, I mean, it was, you know, the art world was always small, in my opinion. And I think, you know, she once told me, anyway, she was super great, she was super friendly, super nice. And she once told me, she's like, you know, during the good times, you got to save your money as a gallerist, because there will always be bad times, and then, you know, you're not going to sell anything. And I was like, wow, I took that to heart. I was like, you know, and through everything. No, I mean, it's, you mentioned, you know, that you have your gallery, your store, which is very beautiful. I love it. I mean, it is a classic storefront in a neighborhood with other galleries. It's accessible. You have your showroom window. You know, it's, I think it's great. I wouldn't change, you know. I think the mistake that a lot of galleries do is as they have success, they expand and get bigger and bigger.
And the overhead becomes bigger.
And then their artists get swiped by a bigger gallery, or their artist falls out of fashion and their new artist is not selling as well, and then they have a problem, you know. So I think the key is really to stay small, to keep operating small, and stock that money away when you do hit, you know, a big artist that's
So that's the
successful.
key to longevity?
I think so. I mean, it's the same with art fairs. It's like, I shudder when, I mean, I have a good overview. I'm not going to name names or give exact figures, but only about 2 galleries this edition of Art Cologne asked me, can we extend a payment over 6 months? That happens every fair, maybe 2 or 3 times. From 2 or 3 galleries out of 160 is great. When that suddenly is 50 galleries asking, that's going to be a problem. That's when I would be nervous, yeah? But it's kind of a given. We know the market's, you know, not gotten easier. A lot of the international collectors are having difficulties or having second thoughts or are getting nervous from all the doom and gloom press. But anyway, the great thing about today and what I personally, and I think you too, what we're excited about is that change is underway. There's a shuffling, a reshuffling of everything. And about 2 years ago, we were approached by the Mallorquin Gallery Association, Art Palma Contemporani, whether we would like to recreate our Art Cologne Palma Mallorca Fair. And my predecessor, Gerard Goodrow, started a fair in 2007, the year before I got there, before I came to Cologne. And I nixed that fair because it was founded for all of the wrong reasons, I would say. It was founded to deflect from the fact that Art Cologne, the mother fair in Cologne, was failing, was falling apart, and it's not a good reason to start a new fair. You really need, I think, several things. You need a scene of existing galleries. You need an art market, so to say, in place. Yeah, it needs to be a beautiful place, and the time of year needs to make sense, etc. And you need it should be homed in a country that is economically doing well, that has a tradition of collecting art. Those are all little factors that make sense for starting an art fair. And so we've been working on this for 2 years now, 2.5 years, and we finally gotten the okay, and we're going to announce our new spring sister fair on Mallorca next week. So you're the first to hear about this. But anyway,
yes.
I shouldn't, that's a long monologue. I think we should say a few things now, maybe.
No. It's actually, we're here, I'm already saying a lot because actually we're here to, it's so interesting, the dynamic, how this, sometimes, because I wanted to ask you much more personal things, but now, because you're the art fair director and I'm the gallerist, we're talking the history of the market, which is really interesting. I think sometimes, and I hope, like for the audience that hopefully can listen and look at that they understand, that we are talking in a way, because this was something, we're going to wrap it up soon, but I think very often that the art talk is kind of like, it's like coded, or it's kind of like, it's hard for people that have nothing to do with art to relate to it, which I find an issue, because I think it's important, because as my last guest, Reinhard Ernst, said, art is for all. It should be for all. And,
yes.
And even Art Cologne is very often, it's like a public fair. People come on the public days, pay for the ticket, and come into the booth and say, are you the artist? Or say, is this for sale? Yes. So there is an audience for art on an art market which does not even understand that this is a market. Which for us sometimes, I have to admit, as a gallery standing there for 8 hours on her feet, sometimes a little bit frustrating.
I know.
But on the other hand, it shows that there is interest, and that people, even if they just consider that it is a show and not a sales show, so we need the people that understand that it's for sale. We need to the people that understand that, as well as for the fair, but very much for the galleries, it's a risk. All the galleries that are doing fairs are risk takers, actually. Yes. They're really sort of like throwing everything in the bank and saying, hey, okay, I'm here, I'm standing here. Come here, ask me questions, talk to me. I'm open, I'll tell you everything. And if you want to, I sell it to you, and I even might give you a little bit better price if you talk nicely to me. Yeah. So all of these things, and this is one of the reasons I do these talks, because I want people to let you know, we are here, and we're doing all of this not because we're so the hardcore, just capitalist. No, because we believe in art, we love art, and we think that that art is for all, and that who can afford it should buy art and live with art. So this is just my long monologue, and to wrap it all up, you talk now about the Art Palma de Mallorca. So, and one thing about this, which you will announce next week.
There's an opportunity now. I think first of all, art fairs are still and will remain an important format for galleries to reach a broader audience. That's just, you can't do everything online, and
No, you can't.
art fairs are primarily about this human interaction, this Begegnung, this, and to be able to look at the work physically. So what can Art Cologne do? How, when we were approached by the Art Palma Contemporánea Gallery Association, we looked at the one place that's very beautiful. It's a new Congress house called the Palau de Congressos Palma Bay, and it's directly on the bay, designed in, I think, 2006, built in 2017, in a neo-brutalist style by the Spanish architect Francisco Mangado. It's absolutely fantastic. It's built with, naval engineering, and it's covered in what looks like styrofoam painted silver, but it's some kind of high-tech material that insulates. the window bays are 5 meters deep. So the sunlight doesn't come in directly, but just the light. So from the inside, it has this fantastic kind of grid-like church appearance. But it's small. It's a small building. So in total, it's maybe about a third the size of what we have in Cologne. And that forced me to kind of think like, okay, what can we do here? I'd like to have around 80 to 100 galleries. The square meter price cannot exceed, around 500 euros. It can't be, 1,000 like Basel, because you can see the galleries are really hurting. For the ones where the market's not working, and with really expensive art fairs, when they work, great. But when they don't work, you lose a lot of money.
You lose a lot of money.
And you can literally lose your head. Yeah. And you can do that maybe once or twice in a row, and then by the third time you're gone.
Yeah.
So when I started doing art fairs in 1996, 7, with Art Chicago, a small booth for young galleries was maybe around 3,500, 2,500. It was affordable. And it was fun. So you did an art fair, you showed an artist, or you showed a small selection of works of your roster of the gallery. You met new people. It was exciting. You met collectors. Collectors bought. It was wonderful. It was this exchange, this physical experience. Yeah? And that's what I want to recreate. So when the Mallorquin Gallery Association approached us, I was like, then there's a fantastic, everything kind of fell into place. It was like, okay, Mallorca's a beautiful island. Palma is a really beautiful city, and it's small. It's like what Basel used to be like maybe 40 years ago, before they did all the Herzog Demeron stuff. Anyway, it has this old charm. It has a lot of luxury hotels. It has great restaurants and old price classes. Even the local food is fantastic, tapas bars. And then the Palau de Congressos, this state-of-the-art building. And I figured out the only way we can do a fair in this building is not using just the hall, but using the hallways, the conference rooms. It's about 3 stories, so there's a big deck, overlooking the sea. And then if we make the booth small, if we start at 10 square meters, which is that's around 90 square feet, and we go up to maximum, around 48 square meters, which is what? 50 ton, 50 ton, 9, around 450 square feet. And we do small, medium, large, extra large, with most galleries concentrating on medium and large, which is around 18 square meters up to, so keeping the costs down, making it all around between 5 to around 12,000 in this bracket, participation costs, which is not going to kill a gallery if you don't sell. It also means you have lower shipping costs. You don't need to bring so much art. You bring an example you do a solo show of maybe 5 works, and then you have the rest on an iPad where,
you could do consolidated shipping.
Yes, there's different, that's going to have to be decided. But anyway, I think the wave of the future is to create an art fair where the booths aren't so big, where the booths aren't so expensive, where the place the fair is in, unlike Art Cologne, which has just drab, dark industrial halls, you take a magnificent piece of state-of-the-art modern architecture in a beautiful island setting with views of the Mediterranean Sea. And that's going to make people excited again. I think both American, on all continents, I think collectors have also gotten bored with going to the same place every year. Every spring going there, every summer going to that city in Switzerland where the hotels are so damn expensive. You know, it's become boring. People want something new.
Yeah, so it's always the balance between sort of like keeping the good things up, inventing something new, you know. What I heard a little bit is, yeah, like keep the costs kind of like really doable. For the galleries, you know, stay small and sharp and just do a good thing, and, you know, and don't extend your overhead so much that it's going to ruin you. And Art Cologne is going to be this November from the 5th to the 9th of November.
The 6th to the 9th.
I'm sorry, the 6th to the 9th of
Thursday,
November.
the 6th.
To Sunday the 9th.
Exactly.
Okay, so I hope everybody who listens to that and sees us somewhere is coming to Art Cologne. And because it will be the crème de la crème of the German galleries.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it. Yes, and if you're around next April.
It's in April, okay.
The Easter holidays, come visit us in Mallorca.
Come to Palma. So, I mean, there are so many things, because I know Dan has to tell so many other stories, because he's really also very well educated in the history of the arts and the art market. But at some point we just have to find an end, and it's going to be now. Okay. So I say thanks, Dan, for coming here. And you know, probably next year or in 2 years or somewhere we find another angle. You know, we have a theme and find another angle and talk again.
Yes. In Spanish.
Spanish.
Espanol.
No. Espanol. Okay, Espanol.
No.
Okay,
but,
so, yeah.
Oh, that was long.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
You're welcome.
So here comes today's book tip. What is an art fair about? Ultimately, it's about collecting, about selling art for the galleries and buying art for art lovers and collectors. And collecting is not only amassing assets or finding some decoration for your home, it's ultimately a way of life. It's a way of supporting the artist, supporting a whole scene, of becoming part of something greater, actually. It is like that. So my book recommendation today is a book that was given to me by my aunt, when I was like 14 or 15 years old. And it's about the exceptional woman and collector Peggy Guggenheim. I have here the German version, Peggy Guggenheim, Ich habe alles gelebt, which is translated as I've lived it all. The original title is Out of this Century, Confessions of an Art Addict, which I think is a little bit more appropriate, because she is a passionate art lover and also artist lover. And this is an autobiography written by herself, in which she tells the story of her life, the story how she became so fascinated by art, how she became so deeply entrenched in the art world, how she actually had to flee as a Jewish person, to flee Europe. So it's a story of the past century. But I think we can learn a lot about being a woman, about art collecting, and how art can really be the red thread that leads you in a good way through your life. So I really enjoyed to read this book when I was 14. She was a kind of role model, like she was really, really cool, Peggy Guggenheim, and eccentric, and very free for a woman of that time, very, very self-empowered. And also I read it again, or I started reading it again. And if you're interested in art, if you're interested in art fairs, if you're interested in collecting, read this book. Peggy Guggenheim, Ich habe alles gelebt, or Out of the Century, Confessions of an Art Addict. Thank you.
Please find links and a text about my guest in the show notes. For more information on Voices on Art, the Van Horn Gallery podcast, visit our website van-horn.net. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Van Horn Gallery, on Instagram at Voices on Art, and at van_horn_Düsseldorf, and subscribe to Voices on Art on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the platform of your choice. And leave your rating if you like it. Thank you for listening to Voices on Art, the Van Horn Gallery podcast hosted by Daniela Steinfeld. Stay tuned and connect.